Hey, boys and girls, it's Mr. Schmidt. How are you today? I have to apologize for my hair. I did some running, not in Kalamazoo, but here in Rockton today, and it's a mess. And also, I'm painting the trim on my window, so that's why I can't close it. So we're a little fuzzy. We're just going to try to deal with this. So sorry about that. Try to ignore the haze and just listen to the words. They're a lot more important. We are going to camp, boys and girls. Camp Kookooskoos, to be exact. And we are on chapter 11. And boy, I'll tell you, Camp Kookooskoos sounds like a great place to be to me, partly because, let's face it, the name is fabulous, but partly because camp is fun. So why don't we read about it and see if Lewis has any fun at camp? Remember, Lewis isn't there just to have some fun. He's there because he has money trouble, which is the same deal that we learned about from chapter 10 when his dad had stolen the trumpet, which Lewis finally learned how to blow. Just ignore my phone. Chapter 11, Camp Kookooskoos was on a small lake deep in the woods of Ontario. There were no summer cottages on the lake, no outboard motors, no roads with cars rushing by. It was a wilderness lake, just right for boys. So an outboard motor, guys, is a motor that sticks off the edge of a boat. So no speedboats, no people who had summer homes up there. So in other words, it was not crowded with a bunch of tourists. It was just a plain old beautiful lake, and on one side was a camp. Mr. Beaver left Sam and Lewis at the end of a dirt road, and they finished their journey to camp by canoe. Sam sat in the stern and paddled, and Lewis stood in the bow and looked straight ahead. So in case you're not sure about what the stern and the bow are, I believe the stern must be the back of the canoe, and Lewis is in the bow, the front. Looking pretty funny to see a Swan, who's a fabulous swimmer, sitting in a canoe, huh? I think so. The camp consisted of a big log cabin where everybody ate, 7 tents where the boys and counselors slept, a dock out front, and a privy out back. When you take a look at the word privy, Privy, it looks a little bit like the word private, and it's actually just another word for a bathroom, like an outside bathroom, kind of a private room where you would use the restroom. The woods closed in all around, but there was a bare spot that had been made into a tennis court, and there were plenty of canoes in which to take trips to other lakes. There were about 40 boys. When Sam's canoe grounded on the sandy beach next to the camp dock, Lewis stepped ashore wearing his slate, chalk pencil, and his trumpet. About 20 boys rushed down to the landing to see what was going on. They could hardly believe their eyes. "Hey, look what's here," one of the boys yelled. "A bird," cried another. "Look at the size of him." Everybody crowded around Lewis, wanting to get a close look at the new camper. Sam had to push some of the boys back to keep Lewis from getting crushed. "Take it easy, will you?" Sam implored. That evening, after supper, the director of the camp, Mr. Brickle, built a big campfire in front of the main lodge. The boys gathered around. They sang songs and toasted marshmallows and swatted mosquitoes. Sometimes you couldn't understand the words of a song because the boys sang with marshmallows in their mouths. Lewis did not join this group. He stood by himself at a little distance. I'm going to show you a picture of Lewis standing by himself at a little distance away from them. Do you think that Lewis is standing a little ways away from them because he was scared because the boys kind of got up or close to him? Or do you think maybe he feels a little bit shy because he's not a boy, he's a swan? We'll have to see. I wonder what you're thinking about that. After a while, Mr. Brickle rose to his feet and addressed the boys and the counselors. An address doesn't mean writing an address on a letter. Address means talking to them. "I call your attention," he said, "to a new camper in our midst, Lewis the Swan. He's a trumpeter swan, a rare bird. We are lucky to have him. I have employed him at the same salary I pay my junior counselors, $100 for the season." I don't know how that's anybody's business. "He is a gentle swan. He's gentle swan, and he has a speech defect. He came here from Montana with Sam Beaver. Lewis is a musician, and like most musicians, he's in need of money. He will wake you up at daybreak with his trumpet. He will call you to meals, and at night, when you are dropping off to sleep, he will play taps, and that will bring the day to a close. I caution you to treat him as an equal and treat him with respect. He packs a terrific wallop with one of those wings. And now I introduce, for your listening pleasure, Louis the Swan. Take a bow, Louis. Louis was embarrassed, but he came forward and he bowed, and then he raised his trumpet to his mouth and blew a long coo. When he finished, from the opposite shore of the lake came the echo, coo, coo, coo. The boys clapped. Louis bowed again. Sam Beaver, sitting with the others, his mouth full of marshmallows, was delighted that his plan had succeeded. At the end of the summer, Louis would have $100. Only about 800 to go, right, boys and girls? A boy named Applegate Skinner stood up. Mr. Brickle, he said, what about me? I don't care for birds. I've never liked birds. Applegate needs to learn some manners, huh? Okay, Applegate, said Mr. Brickle, you don't have to like birds. If that's the way you feel about it, just go ahead not liking birds. Everyone is entitled to his likes and dislikes and to his prejudices. Come to think of it, I don't care for pistachio ice cream. I don't know why. I don't like it, but I don't. Do not forget, however, that Louis is one of your counselors. Whether you like him or not, he must be treated with respect. Now, they said the word prejudices, and prejudices is actually one of the words we're going to be learning this week. Prejudices starts with the word pre, the prefix pre, which means before. And what that means is before you meet somebody, you already have an idea of what you're going to think about them. Prejudice is a very strong word, and it's a very dangerous word. Applegate has decided before he meets Louis, or even tries to get to know him at all, that he does not like Louis. And he just doesn't like birds. So he's just decided he's not going to like Louis. That is a prejudice. And you may think that that's kind of silly, boys and girls, but the truth is that without realizing it, sometimes we accidentally group people into groups according to things that we know about them or things we see about them, and we decide what we think we're going to think about them before we meet them. So it's a really great idea to know what a prejudice is and also to be thinking a little bit about how you can avoid using them, because you never know, somebody who you think you might have an idea about and you don't give a chance to might be a good friend that you're missing getting to know. Okay, so Applegate has decided he doesn't like Louis. He's got a prejudice against birds, doesn't like birds. So he's decided no Louis, which is fine, except that he's missing getting to know Louis, which is a pretty cool thing to get to do, if you ask me. Not everybody gets to know a trumpeting swan at a summer camp. Let's see. One of the new boys who had never been to camp before stood up. Mr. Brickle, he said, why is this camp called Camp Kookooskoos? What does Kookooskoos mean? It's an Indian name for the great horned owl, replied Mr. Brickle. The new boy thought about that for a minute. Then why didn't they just call it Camp Great Horned Owl instead of Camp Kookooskoos? Because, replied Mr. Brickle, a boys' camp should have a peculiar name. Otherwise, it doesn't sound interesting. Kookooskoos is a terrific name. It is a long word, but it only has 3 letters in it. It has 2 S's, 3 K's, and 6 O's. You don't find many names as kooky as that. The queerer the name, the better the camp. Anyway, welcome to Camp Kookooskoos. It rhymes with moose, and that's another good thing about it. And now it's time for everybody to go to bed. You may take a swim before breakfast tomorrow, and you don't need to wear your swim trunks. Just jump out of bed when you hear the trumpet of the swan, strip off your pajamas, and race to the dock and dive in. I will be there ahead of time to do my celebrated backflip from the diving tower. It freshens me up for the hard day ahead. Okay, so let's have a talk about that. So they all get up in the morning and they don't have a shower, boys and girls, because they just have an outdoor toilet. So they basically go and take their baths in the lake together. Keep in mind that this book was written a really long time ago. And actually, I know for a fact that around the time that this book was written, and even before that, for some reason, my father-in-law told me that he didn't wear a bathing suit when he went in the swimming pool when he was in middle school and in high school. I don't know why he didn't, but he didn't. So that's something that has changed over time. And I'm going to try not to form a prejudice of how weird I think it sounds, because I didn't live during that time. And I don't know what the thinking was behind all the boys going and taking a bath together in the lake in the morning. I get taking a bath in the lake when you don't have any place else to go. I get taking a bar of soap in there, but I don't know if I would want to do it with a big group. But that's okay. Here we go. Let's keep going. Good night, Louis. Good night, Sam. Good night, Applegate. Good night, all. The light was fading. The boys straggled off to their tents in the darkness. The senior counselors sat together on the porch and smoked one last pipe. Sam crawled in under his blankets in tent 3. Louis walked to a high, flat rock by the shore and stood there waiting. When the lights were all out, he faced the camp, raised his arm to his mouth, and blew the song Taps. And I'm going to read you the lyrics. So that's what taps sounds like. It's a very beautiful song. Kind of a serious song too, because it's often played at funerals. Actually, I think it's always played at funerals for soldiers who die. So the lyrics go like this, and I can't sing the notes very well, so I'm just going to do my best. Day is done, gone the sun, from the lake, from the hills, from the sky. All is well, safely rest, God is nigh. And those words tell you that it's the end of the day and that you're safe to sleep. And then God is nigh actually translated would mean God is nearby watching over you. So whether you believe that or not, it is a song, and those are the lyrics. The last note seemed to linger on the still waters of the lake. From their beds, the boys heard the beautiful sound. They felt sleepy and serene and happy, all but Applegate Skinner, who didn't care for birds at bedtime. But even Applegate was soon asleep, along with the others in his tent. He was asleep and he was snoring. People who dislike birds often snore. Who knew? A deep peace fell over Camp Kookooskoos. And I'll show you a picture of Louis the Swan. And the reason that I played that song on Spotify instead of asking Miles to play it on play taps, is because he doesn't know how to play taps. But I am going to have my son Miles record some live music on a trumpet, and he will be putting that on our YouTube channel shortly. So there you go. And that's the end of the chapter. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'll read more tomorrow. Bye, boys and girls.